Hi, everybody. Welcome to the ShopNotes Podcast. This is episode number 240. It's a hot town, summer in the city. Back of my neck is getting dirt and gritty. And on this episode, we're going to talk about woodworking in the heat. We'll also talk about a new woodworking book that's out on the market and going to see other people's woodworking, among whatever else pops up. It's me, Phil Huber, your host today, joined by John Doyle. Logan Whitmer is out on assignment. He is trying to find someplace that's even hotter than the state of Iowa right now. And we'll be back next time for a full report of his trip out west. So before we get started, a little word from our sponsor. This episode of the ShopNotes Podcast is brought to you by Harvey Industries, when good enough is not good enough. See all of our new tools at harveywoodworking.com. All right, one of the things that I've noticed here is that we've made a strategic decision to move the ShopNotes Podcast to its own channel. And as a result, some of our normal commenters haven't followed up and come over to be able to. I'm looking at you, Puppy Doc Bob, calling you out.
Yeah. Apparently he hasn't been listening because you've said we're moving.
Yeah.
And we finally moved. So.
Yep. So we need you to go over to the ShopNotes Podcast on YouTube. You can look it up that way. YouTube.com/ShopNotes Podcast. It's right there. Sign up. Subscribe, like, ring the bell, whatever, to make sure that you can continue on with the conversation. Otherwise, it's just John and I making comments about shopsmiths, and nobody is going to care.
Yep. Which we'll do it anyways. We don't care if people care.
We've proven that.
Yep.
All right. Speaking of comments, Elfita158 says, I liked Logan's comments about last episode about every dovetail jig being very difficult to understand, where you'd have to read the manual every time before you use it. He says, in fact, how many of us have gone out and bought a new router just so we don't have to mess with the collar bit height configuration of that one router that you use with that one jig? I made one of the adjustable dado jigs from Plans Now, or whatever they're calling it now. BTW, it's woodsmithplans.com. And I have that one router with the 1/2-inch square cut bit set to the right height for a 1/4-inch dado. And I crazy glued everything in place. Hashtag complain brag.
Yep.
So there you go.
Yeah, I don't think you've made it as a woodworker until you have 10 different routers and different configurations and different bits, and just kind of collected them all. Hit all the auctions and garage sales.
You know, there's something to be said for that, because and especially with, dare I say, the discount tool stores that there are now, that you could get have basically a single-use router drill kind of insert in there and not spend a lot of money on it. And unless you were doing it all the time every day, it would still sort of be a long-lived tool, because it's just not going to get a lot of operating time. You know, in the same way that I think some people would have a small router with just like a chamfer bit or a roundover bit in it, always set up, ready to go, buzz that around.
Yeah.
Which I have always been against, so to speak, because there was a time when in my woodworking I was lucky and happy to have just the one router and tried to do as much as I can with it. I have two now, and I would really hesitate to go beyond that.
Yeah. Yeah, once I got a router table that I used more frequently, I went to two routers. Just I didn't want to take it in and out of the table all the time.
Hmm.
So one on the table, one handheld. Uh, I might go with a compact router as well, like have a full size handheld and a compact handheld, just
Okay.
because they're convenient. Like the new battery powered ones, they're pretty decent. They're pretty convenient not having a cord. They do a lot of the smaller profiles and joinery, so
Yeah.
I like those.
I'm kind of amazed, frankly, at how quickly those cordless routers improved. Because I remember
Mhm.
when Porter Cable years and years ago had like a battery powered version of their 690, and it was sketchy just because of the battery didn't last very long.
Yeah,
And then you had some of the early 18 volt cordless routers that were small, and it didn't seem like they could do very much for very long.
right.
But now, to the simple fact that Chris, Mark, and Dylan in the shop all have Milwaukee 18 volt cordless routers
Yeah,
and use them basically as their default router, unless they're doing something at a router table or deep mortises, whatever.
right. Yeah, they're just so convenient because, I mean, even like most handheld router, you have to find an extension cord and plug it in, and then the cord's kind of dragging behind you and in the way. So it's so convenient to grab those and the battery powered ones and just kind of go and set it to the side and keep moving.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can remember this was probably 20, 30 years ago by now, but having all the battery powered tools like seemed like it had a car battery on it and it would toting that thing around and then still would only last about 30 minutes and then you're charging it for 8 hours. And so, yeah, it's come a long way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is kind of crazy to remember some of my dad's cordless tools, or because Woodsmith and ShopNotes have been around for so long, seeing their photos in the archive where you're just flipping through looking for article research or background or something, and then there's just, at the time, the new cool tool sitting there,
Mm-hmm.
and it's this 12 volt tool with a giant brick of a battery.
Yeah.
How quickly that can date a photo.
Yeah. Yeah. The hand planes, they still look the same. It's the battery powered tools that quickly date everything.
Yeah. I think it's also funny that there's enough people out there, speaking of hand planes, that will, in good fun, tease some woodworkers for having a bunch of routers, where then you'll get somebody that has like 6 or 8 different hand planes that all essentially do the same thing.
Right.
It's like, okay, it goes both ways.
Yep.
So what do you have for router? What is your router then, or two routers?
I've kind of latched on to the Bosch. Oh, what is that? Like the 1618 or 7. I don't know, what is that?
1617? Yeah.
You're Googling. Yeah. Is that it?
Yeah.
1617?
Yep.
Yeah. So I kind of got in on that one early on. And because we've had both the Bosch and the Porter Cable routers here. And it's just not that one is better than the other. It's just where the controls are on the Bosch is more familiar to me. So I've got a couple of those and
Okay.
with the plunge base and all the different accoutrements, as the French say.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm. Because that's the one, the fixed base one has the like turned maple or beech handles
Yep.
on it or something.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of a cool look. I know that some people don't like it, but I kind of do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have had both of those, and it is amazing how durable each of those models are. Because I don't think there's any one of those Porter Cable or Bosch ones here that's less than 10 years old easily.
Right. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I must have got my first one more than 20 years ago. It was before I had kids, so a long time ago. And it's still going strong. So
yeah. It's really cool.
Yeah.
Speaking of routers, we got, being print text kind of folk, keep an eye on what's going on for woodworking related media and magazines and books in particular. And a new book by the Guild of Master Craftsmen called Routing. I'll put a photo and a link to it in the show notes page. It's by, I apologize for butchering the name, Toyohisa Sugita, a Japanese craftsman who has written several other books that have been translated into English. One of them is on like hand tool woodworking, and just came out with this one for routing, and it's primarily with small compact routers. He uses, all the photos in his book use a little Makita router, which I still believe Makita is an underdog tool that actually is tool company or brand or whatever you want to say that actually makes extremely well made stuff. So I was flipping through that book the last couple of weeks since we've gotten it, and it's really kind of cool because being from Japan, he's taking a look at routing operations from a totally different point of view than what we do in the US, even though you think to yourself, like, it's a router, how different can you use it?
yeah.
But I really enjoyed that perspective. I think for the fact that they don't make the same mistakes we make in a different culture. They'll make different ones, which is fine. But it's being able to step outside of what you normally do to get a different perspective on stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, having not read the book, it makes me wonder, do their routers spin the other way and they're like a Western pull router? And we push routers and they pull them? It's like,
maybe.
I don't know.
That could be.
I'll
I
have to read
do
the
know
book.
that in Australia, I think their bits spin the other direction.
Oh, yeah. Just because Southern Hemisphere
Right.
has to.
Yeah. Because I think it's like almost Christmas there now in Australia.
Oh, yeah.
I think. I don't know.
Australian Christmas.
Yeah. Somebody will correct me.
Yeah.
Anyway, his books reminded me of another set of woodworking router related books that was pretty influential when I first started at Woodsmith. Was a guy by the name of Pat Warner, lived out in California. I think he passed away like 10 years ago or something now. But he had a cool website that I wish wouldn't have gone away for all the information that he had on it. But in our Woodsmith library, that if you're here for Woodworking in America, you could browse, see what we have for books. Anyway, Pat Warner wrote books related to the router, getting the very best from your router. Mm-hmm. Fast, easy, and accurate router jigs, also kind of a classic, and the Router Joinery Handbook. And if you can find some of these books at used online or your local used bookstore or whatever, again, you may not use everything that's in there, but it's an interesting interesting approach to woodworking and using a router, because he kind of goes nuts on making jigs. So it's very ShopNotes adjacent.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm always amazed going through either our archive or older books like that where I feel like, I've been around a long time and seen it all, and there are still like little pieces of, information that I can learn from, or I was like, oh, that I haven't seen that before, or kind of incorporate into what I'm doing. So haven't learned it all yet. So.
I also find myself relearning some of it that I'll just pick up or flip through one of those books, reminds me of something else that I had seen, and go back and dig it back up. And it's like, oh yeah. Or maybe to realize that I've adopted some things that came from like Pat Warner's books, but I just had forgotten that that's the source that it came from. And it just filtered into your woodworking, that you just pick either, whether it's a book or like the other people that work around here or something like that, that you just see that, oh yeah, oh, that's where I got that idea from. What do you know? Behind the scenes, most of the time, John and I, because if we've been around here so long, we try and remember where something was that we've misplaced. And either John or I remember two very distinct places where that item used to be, and it hasn't been there for years.
Right. It's not even in the same building that we're in. It's a totally different building. It's probably still there.
Probably is, yeah. I still think some things that I print are in that other building across the street.
Yeah, it's just printing like crazy, and they're all piling up.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
Yep.
All right. Next section that I want to address today is the fact that when we're recording this episode in the back end of July here, today is a heat advisory day in Iowa. Heat indices will be above 100 degrees, which I believe. And also, people from not the Midwest are going to laugh and dismiss this, but there is a thing called corn sweat that is legit, in the fact that in the last 30, 40 years, Iowa corn farmers have been packing more corn plants per acre than they used to. And corn plants, as they grow, transpire water into the atmosphere, leading to an increase in the relative humidity. And I know, because I've talked to people, that it just doesn't seem to make sense. Like, that's just not a thing, but it is.
Corn is causing global warming. So all you people eating your corn on the cob, it's your fault. It's real.
Yep.
Which is, coincidentally, isn't David Cornsweet the new Superman actor? Is that his name?
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right. Yeah.
So he's causing the humidity in Iowa.
Right.
I blame him.
Yep.
So.
Anyway, as a result, trying to work in my garage shop these last couple of weeks has been a struggle. My son and I are working on a project together, and we've on purpose gone out at 8 or a little after, just because it's a little cooler in the day, so to speak, and have fans going, garage door and windows open, and it's not bad, but by the end of the night, we're both dripping with sweat and caked with sawdust.
Yeah. When it's that humid, it's like jumping in a pool that's like 98 degrees, where it's just not like you can move the air all you want, but it's just not refreshing. It's just moving hot air.
Right.
So, but yeah, I noticed that last week I was working on a landscaping project kind of off the east corner of our house, and my work followed the shade, how the shade kind of moved the shadow of the
Mm-hmm.
house. I only worked in that area. That was the only like relief I could find. Would not go into the sun. So I would be a terrible landscaper probably. So don't hire me.
Or like a really cagey landscaper, in the fact that your day would be have a distinct rhythm to it as you
Yeah.
started on one edge of the property and then moved along to the other side.
Yes. I only work at night,
Yeah.
out digging holes at
Mm-hmm.
midnight. The shady landscaper.
I can see it.
Yep.
I can see it. So yeah, and that kind of came back to bite me yesterday, in the fact that I've had my shop windows open to help the garage stay moderate its temperature as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
But last night we had sort of a sudden, unexpected storm roll through. And in one of the windows next to the bandsaw, where nothing was on the window, totally dry. The other window above my workbench, where on the windowsill I have a wood-bodied hand plane and a little steel, like 6x12, like little baby framing square on there, got rain in on it. So hand plane got wet. The blade of the plane left a little black straight line on my windowsill, and then there's a little black line underneath where the little square was. Had to wipe those down. And then I closed the windows because, the horses are already out of the barn. So
Yeah. Trap in all that moisture.
right. Fool me once, Mother Nature.
Yeah.
There's a back catalog of episodes of the ShopNotes podcast that you may not have heard before. You can go to our YouTube channel at ShopNotes Podcast and check out all the action there and catch up on all the content that we've created. So anyway, I would like to know how other folk cope with woodworking when it's hot out. And maybe that's why woodworking is seasonal, that there's enough people that don't have conditioned shop spaces that they'll just work in the cooler months rather than when it's hot. So if you're a woodworker in the South, or a place where it gets hot in the summer, I'd like to know what you do to keep on working. Do you live in a dry enough climate that you can do a evaporative swamp cooler, lots of fans, just work at night, whatever? Send me your ideas. We'll talk about them on a future episode. I'd love to hear it. So you can send those to woodsmith@woodsmith.com as an email address, or leave them on the YouTube channel for the ShopNotes podcast, and we'll read those off. Side question to that, John, is when you're outside working landscaping or doing a project in the garage or something like that, are you a music listener while you work?
Yes. I usually will have just music on, or a baseball game kind of playing in the background. But this has been a lot of times in the fall where I'm in the shop here on the weekends alone, and like we'll have a football game on the radio, and it's like, got to wait for this play to happen before I can turn on the table saw. Okay, that's over, and I got to quick make a few cuts, and then so it's like trying to listen to something. But yeah, it's a great time to listen to podcasts.
It is.
Mm-hmm.
So, but usually you have a radio, not like a noise canceling headphones.
No, I usually have my little 1980s boombox sitting on the corner of my workbench. Still has the old metal antenna that you got to flip up and kind of
Yep. Steer
adjust.
around.
And,
Yep.
Yep. So,
Classic.
yeah.
Because normally when I'm in my shop, I don't listen to anything. And oftentimes we'll just leave my my earplugs in my ears and just
Mm-hmm.
be cone of silence as I'm
Yep.
working away. Just probably because I mutter to myself enough that there's plenty of noise going on anyway.
That's what I was going to say. You're probably listening to your own internal muttering. And
Yeah. But when my son was out with me in the shop, he wanted to listen to music, and he had bought himself not that long ago one of those big like party speakers. It's like 2 feet high.
Yeah.
He loves to surround himself with some sound, and so he was listening to that while we were working. So that was kind of an interesting change of pace. Although I will say that he was pleasantly surprised when he called up on Spotify. The radio channel, or the channel, was 80s classic rock or something like that. And the very first song that played was Van Halen's Jump. And so he was just amazed by how awesome that music was altogether.
Heck yeah. It's classical music.
Right. Yeah.
Let's see, the 80s are what, 40 years ago?
Right.
So that's like us in the 80s listening to 1940s music.
Right. Right. Like Benny Goodman's Swing.
Yeah. Some jazz.
Yep.
Like, hey, this is pretty good. Yeah.
Which I cannot picture myself being, 14 years old, listening to something from the 40s and just like rocking out to it and just looking at my dad being like, man, these have all been bangers on the radio here. And
I can remember being in the 80s and maybe listening to like late 60s, 70s music and thinking that like, this is old people.
Yeah, because that's what it was on the radio. My dad
Yeah.
was the primary driver on family car trips. So he got to control the radio dial, and it was AM 1040, the oldies station, 50s, 60s, and 70s. And by 70s, we meant like anything after like 1972. Nope, not on there.
We listened to both country and Western. So. Classics
All the
from
music.
Conway Twitty and
oh yeah. That would have been anytime we went to visit my grandparents who had a dairy farm in Wisconsin. And if it was milking time, then country and Western station was on, and there was a lot.
The dairy
of twang.
cows love it. They love it.
Not many people know that. Is that secretly cattle are partial to that music.
Mm-hmm. Which is weird to think because of like us in the 80s, the 60s and 70s would have been like my kids thinking the early 2000s music is like classics, old music.
It kind of breaks my brain when you put it like that on stuff. And and those kind of things come up often enough on, internet memes or whatever, where it's like, when this movie came out, blah, 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 is the same age as if you were, whatever random weirdo kind of thing. And it's like, nope, I can't think of that.
It's not the same.
Yep. Totally different. It's new math.
Yep. So.
Excellent segue, John, in the fact that the other thing that I wanted to talk about, because I just got in the mail today, our state fair permit pass to judge the woodworking show at the Iowa State Fair, which is in 3 weeks from now, starting, because both Woodsmith and one of the other woodworking magazines just down the street each contribute a judge for the woodworking events that people exhibit at the Iowa State Fair. And it's been tons of fun to be part of that. This year, Dylan is going to go down and be one of the judges. The judging actually takes place before the fair opens, a couple of days before the fair opens, so that when you go there, you'll be able to see how everybody did. And I always think it's tons of fun, the times that I've judged out there, and been impressed by the fact that there's that many people that are willing to show off their woodworking in a way. Because I think a lot of times woodworkers are pretty humble about what they do and a little reticent to put your work out there for other people to see.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of times they're just building things and either for themselves or somebody else, and kind of you build it and it goes on its way. But to enter it into the fair, you have to have, start on it well in advance, I'm sure, and have to plan for that. And it's always interesting to see what people come up with. I always seem to see a few woodsmith projects either by the adults in the cultural building or in the 4-H building. So I'm always looking out for those, see what I recognize people building. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. So I would like to recommend folk out there, woodworkers, to find a way to show off what you do, whether it's at a woodworking club meeting when they do show and tells at their monthly meetings, or something like a state or a county fair. Like, just enter it in. If nothing else, it shows the people that come to the fair and wander through those buildings that there are just regular folk making stuff, and it's really awesome. I think we sell ourselves short on a lot of our abilities and skill, that we kind of take some of that stuff for granted. And it's a way of showing the natural creativity that people have and being able to do that. And also, if you can't or don't want to do that, at least go to a fair, exhibition, whatever, and offer some support by going to see it. Like John said, we have the 4-H program here in Iowa, as there are in a lot of places. And there's a lot of 4-Hers out there that are working with either a parent or club leaders or whatever to build stuff and learn about the use of tools and the material of woodworking and whatever. So to go and be able to offer some support and encouragement there is a great way to build up the craft. But yeah, I do love going through the 4-H building and seeing all kinds of metal art and welding and electrical projects and furniture. There's a lot of people around 4-Hers that'll take like a family heirloom and refinish it, and have all the photos that go with it of the before and the during and the after. And then they have to do a write-up about their project, and being able to read through some of those projects and what they all did and what they learned about. And kind of in the marginalia of all of those, you'll get, where they talk to some guy about, or a family member or whatever, about what was the right material to use or the finish or the story behind why this piece was at grandma's house to begin with. And it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of in the same vein of sharing your work. It seems like people don't do it very often, but like just sharing their projects, either like Facebook or emailing us. I don't know if they assume that we've just seen it all and we don't care, but it's like when somebody emails us pictures of projects they've built, especially from the magazine, it was like, we're all so excited and like passing around the photo, sharing the email, and like, oh, look what they did. They, changed the finish or used a different kind of wood or modified it to fit kind of what they needed, but it was the same basic project. We're always really excited to see that kind of stuff too. So,
oh yeah, definitely
send it our way. So.
Right. I'd like to be able to do that more, post some of those things on our site more often, whether it's on Instagram or on our webpage, just to be able to do some of those, highlight some of those reader pictures. I also think it's kind of funny, the number of people that send in photos, and I'd like to see more, like John said, but that when they do are almost apologetic about the fact that they changed something. Like, you guys made yours out of mahogany and that's way too expensive around here. So I made mine out of blah, blah, blah. And it's like, it looks fantastic. You did a great job. Like, mix it up.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, even as we're building stuff for the magazine, we probably have 3 different opinions or 4, of what materials we should use, or we would have done it differently the next time, but we can only show it one way, and certain things might photograph better than others. So we do it a certain way, but we're all for variation. So,
yeah. And I mean, that's part of the reason that I have people come in to do tours here, is to be able to see some of those projects in real life, because, we have a pretty fantastic photographer to represent those projects as best as we can, but it's a 3-dimensional object getting reproduced on paper with ink using whatever color correction that they need to match the paper, blah, 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 blah. There's just something different from seeing something real as opposed to what it looks like in the magazine, as much as we can do a great job with those.
Yeah.
So then we will make choices knowing what it's going to look like on paper. And in real life, it's totally different. And then there's been a bunch of times where Mark will build a project, get done with it, and then we'll be talking about it in preparation for writing the article or presenting. And he would be like, knowing what he does after building it, he would have done something different, or, he makes sample boards of stain colors, and that stain board sample colors, I feel like, is a woodworker's Rorschach test in the sense that any 6 woodworkers looking at 4 different stain samples will come up with all kinds of underlying messages that each of those stain colors represent.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of funny.
Yeah. I was going to say, the other reason it's nice to have people in looking at, like, seeing the stuff in real life, it's like Mark will spend a week or 2 and thousands of dollars in materials building projects, and then it gets 2 photographs, and then that's it.
Yeah.
So it's like, come look at this, everyone. We need to get some more use out of this.
Yeah. So we've been stockpiling some projects, getting ready for Woodworking in America, and part of the event is, again, doing an open house here at the mothership, where you'll be able to see the video studio where I am right now, where we film the TV show and all of our YouTube videos, and then also our photo studio where we shoot photos for all the projects, and the main workshop where they're all built. You get to talk with the designers like John and Dylan and Chris, and chat with editors and illustrators, and see Mark in person as opposed to the lives that we do on YouTube, and then seeing all the projects. We keep a bunch of them here. You can see some over my shoulder in the permanent collection, so to speak. Ones that we want to show off, ones that we're holding for the TV show. You can see the difference in how stuff gets built for the show versus how stuff gets built for the magazine. And which of us care more?
Well, part of it's just being under the gun for time.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so all of that.
Yep.
So there you are. Support your local woodworkers by showing off your work and going to a county fair. Get yourself a corn dog. Have some food on a stick.
Sweaty.
Get corn sweaty. And then sign up for Woodworking in America. Circle it all up. Bring it right back. All right, that runs through my list, John. What are you working on right now?
Oh, today I am doing reader's tips for photography. So it's basically lock me in the corner of the shop with a sheet of Baltic birch, sheet of pegboard, some duct tape, baling wire, threaded inserts, and let me go nuts. So building all the props and kind of winging it from there.
Yeah.
So that is what I'm currently working on today. But the other interesting thing is we do from time to time a lot of in ShopNotes one wall workshops, which is like basically taking 20 feet of one wall space and coming up with some sort of all encompassing shop. So kind of what would you would put maybe on the back wall of a garage or, basement utility room. I think the last one we did was 2016 now.
Was it that long ago?
Yeah, I looked it up. That's the one that we have in the photo studio.
Oh, geez.
But it's time to do another one, and we want to do an online ed class kind of around that. But I've been working on the workbenches for that project, but I don't know if we've done this before, and we've kind of pressed for time. So I'm working on workbenches. Dylan's working on some modular storage. Chris is working on wall storage, I believe, for that. And it's kind of like, okay, everybody come up with your own thing, and then we'll come back together and see where we're at and kind of see if we can make a cohesive project out of it. So that's been interesting as far as a team effort. Usually we kind of just do our own things and come up with things on our own. So still in the middle of that process. So we'll see how it goes, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, it's been fun to see, and I kind of blows me away that one's been sitting there for that long.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those one wall workshops have been pretty popular as magazine projects and plans as a way to figure out a way to build out, turn any blank space really into a workshop, and what would be the basic elements that you'd want to put in there. How can you customize it? All that kind of stuff. On our show notes page, I'll put a link to several of the plans that we have on Woodsmith Plans that have featured previous versions of one wall workshops that we have. That'll be cool. And yes, it is a delight to watch John have like a woodworking jam session with our readers. It's like woodworking jazz, really. Readers will send in tip ideas along with photos of what they've done. And John takes that melody, flips it around, and comes out with a whole new riff and puts it out there. So but like you said, it is also like a woodworking escape room where you got to get yourself out to see how it works. Oh, which brings up something. We had a guy come through for a tour last week and was looking around. He and his wife were here looking at all the different projects or whatever. And he brought up the question that I know has been asked a bazillion times, but I think it's worthwhile here. He'll say, why do you build everything out of Baltic birch plywood when A, it's super expensive, 2, you can't find it in my X area of the country, and C, it's super expensive.
Yeah, it's an addiction. It's a hard habit to kick.
I mean, the main reason, I would say, for probably 75% of the uses that we show Baltic birch in, you could substitute any other sheet material on and be totally fine with it. There are a few times where we're using Baltic birch for a structural, aesthetic, functional reason. That if you were to switch out to a different material, you would need to know that going into it, that you are making a little bit of a compromise with it.
Yeah.
So I think the primary reason that we use Baltic birch is for how it looks on camera, both in photos and video.
Yeah, I would say, yeah. The way it looks on camera, and just from the fact that it doesn't have any voids in it, so the edges look really good, and you don't have to do any filling or covering or anything as far as edges. So it's a big time saver there.
Yeah, that's true.
Photography. So, but yeah, mostly because it looks good.
Yeah. I mean, because without being too precious about the stuff that we do, the photos serve an inspirational purpose for readers and viewers and people online. I think that we want the project itself to stand out rather than being distracted by, like you said, some crazy flaw that appears when you cut a sheet apart, where it looks great when you're pulling it off the truck, but then as soon as you cut it open, all of a sudden there's like vastly different colors in there, or a void or something like that.
Yeah. But yeah, most of the like jigs and templates and stuff that we make out of Baltic birch, a lot of times like readers' tips will get sent in. It's 3 or 4 different types of plywood, whatever they had laying around, and that's totally fine. But it would just be really distracting photo-wise if we did that in a magazine. And so we're trying to make it look as good as possible, and like you said, kind of aspirational and kind of showing off, little flex, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of times the readers' tips are relatively small things too. So it's like a good use of Baltic birch scrap pieces that we have here. It's not like you're taking a big 4x8 sheet of Baltic birch and cutting it up into a little, 2-drill cordless drill holder with a tape measure rack on it. You know, it's all the trimmings from
which
other
I do have a
projects.
habit of, like, saving all of the little Baltic birch scraps for such things. So
oh yeah, no, I do that
little
too.
Baltic birch vulture,
Yeah, I have a couple of hoarded pieces of it that I keep here, and then also find some little pieces that I take home and use them for shop jigs or templates or whatever. And it's because it's just so nice, just smooth, flat, consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's like the smell of rhydonium, that I just love the smell of Baltic birch when you're cutting into it. It's just, there it is. Just love the smell of rhydonium in the morning. That's it for another episode of the ShopNotes Podcast. If you have any questions, comments, or smart remarks, you can leave them on the YouTube video in the comments section where you're watching this, youtube.com/ShopNotesPodcast. You can also send us an email, woodsmith@woodsmith.com. Thank you to everybody who listens, writes in, sends us comments and letters, comes in for tours, or goes to support your local 4-H'er building projects out of wood. We'll see you next time, everybody. Bye.